All right, I'm recording right now.
Well, this is amazing. I mean, you talk about the future. First of all, everyone, welcome to Media Mondays, our journal type experience with media leaders, people who maybe we don't necessarily see, but are behind uh, things that are happening in media. So just always like to talk to them about their journey and the impact they're making. And of course, my friend DJ Soto, who is the founder of VR Church, does a lot of things in the immersive media realm, decided to invite me down to his office space to do this interview today. Which, if you could see me, I'm just like totally looking around, and now I'm in the wrong chair, which I did not mean to do that. So it has, which I'm kind of glad that that happened. It has just shows us that beyond the screens of maybe what we're, first of all, we had to get used to Zoom this year, and just communicating across line in the new ways that we're seeing ourselves kind of do now on a daily basis. Not just Zoom, but there are other platforms. But um, so here we are in an entirely new space where you really feel a sense of presence. Even your vocabulary changes. I'm like, I didn't mean to sit there. Let me sit over here. And DJ is just here to give us some perspective on this and some thoughts as we move into, just 2021 in general. So DJ, thank you so much. I've said so much, but I'm just excited. Like, I'm in an
Oh yeah,
office.
yeah. No, thanks for coming by. This is Virtual Reality Church's headquarters. This came about because we started out as a church plant. We were planning in these different metaverses, and as we grew, our leadership grew, our volunteers grew, our locations grew. Became a multi-site church, to borrow physical church terms, and really at the beginning of this year, we said, man, we need like a central operations, like a central location that was more than just meeting up on Zoom or perhaps on a Facebook group. So we really looked into what would it be like to have virtual offices. And so here we are in Verbella. This is our headquarters. This is central ops for VR Church and for other ministries, not just VR Church, but mainly for VR Church. And it's been awesome because what we've lost in COVID is that sense of serendipitous interactions that you would have at the office or at school. A lot of these interactions and conversations at the water cooler, getting lunch, all that in between interaction, there's a lot of value to that. And so I'm not knocking Zoom, by the way. I'm sure we can have great productive conversations on Zoom, but it's a very official, static, in and out type of experience where virtual offices brings back the in between times, which are very very
Mm.
important. So we find this to be of high value. We've had people question, not in a negative way, but they're like, why would you do that? Why not just use Zoom? Why not just use Discord? Because we are in a digital era where we need space. We need to stretch it out a bit. So what I mean by that is
Right.
Facebook is instant, Zoom is in and out instant. Everything's so tight, and which is great, and that's benefited us. But then all that in between. So, for example, let's take like going to church, man. Driving to church, parking your car, all that interaction, whether good or bad. We're rushing, we're enjoying the scenery. We're walking. We see Jim over there. There's a door greeter. All that interaction is missed now, and now it's just experience, and that can be good. But I'm making the case for this element of like virtual stretching things out so that there's in between, and that in between interaction is very important. So when we do our church plannings meetings, everyone comes in here, and we'll have a big planning session. But there's the interaction before and after, the banter, the playing around or running around. And then we go into the official side of the meeting. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, hey, I got an idea. Let me talk to you about this. Oh, can we meet and chat? So all those things are just so very important. It's bringing back face to face in a way that goes beyond Zoom and goes into a way that's really resembles the physical. And so a lot of people don't understand the vision of something like a virtual office, but there's a high value. And I would dare say people really need to check into it. I don't know if virtual offices is the topic for today. I just kind of went off on that rant. But,
Listen,
so
we want we want that ramp because we want to, with this, be able, because I really wanted to do this these kind of special features with you and some others who we're just having these talks with about how to. We really were kind of forced into rethinking how we do things uh, because of the pandemic. But I will say, being here in this virtual office, I have a different type of attention than I would if we were, let's say, doing this through a Zoom. Like
Hmm.
on a Zoom, I just got a phone call. So I would have maybe tried to answer that, been on my headset, been muted, might have had the camera off. But in this case, I didn't want to make any rash moves and sit in the wrong chair again. Like it was just like, it gives you a real, it, it really gives you a sense of presence
Hmm.
that you don't feel. I don't know any other way to describe it. Like I am looking around at your walls and reading things on the wall. Now, it does take some getting used to, like walking in here. I think I've been in this office, maybe this is my third or fourth time, maybe third time, and learning how to really, it's almost like our bodies are becoming computers. And that's a lot like getting back to even virtual reality. It's like we're not just using a part. It's like we are. It's beyond where computing has been.
Right, because we have viewed computing as mathematical, very just matter of fact, ones and zeros, programs, execution, and then now we're understanding that these ones and zeros can form social interactions, and we can send messages and email and have social media, and then where we're going is this three-dimensional space with avatars, where computing is now at a level that we couldn't have even imagined, and especially the the early developers of computation looking at this going, what it has the one and zeros become. So I think it's interesting, and it reflects this vision that I think we say when we talk about the information age. And I heard a quote that said, "The information age is coming to a close, and the experience age is about to begin." And so what you've been talking
Mm,
about has been through the lens and through the verbiage of an experience, what an experience is like. I walked in here, I sat down, I'm paying attention. And that is where this computation is moving to. We're moving to more of an experiential age, and that's going to be very, very important. And I think it's going to reflect in many areas. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, too, when I was casting vision for virtual offices, I'm really ultimately talking about an experience to have. Because technically, yes, you launch Zoom, you go down the agenda, you say goodbye. But now we can evolve technology beyond just a mathematical, matter of fact, program execution perspective, and evoke it into this world of emotion and experience. So that's where this is all going, and the experience age is just beginning. I can't even imagine where we're going to go into. Like I was going to show you, my webcam isn't working for some reason with the platform Verbella, but I'm wearing a haptic vest right now. That's what I was going to show you on my webcam. And so a haptic vest is vibrations that I can feel in the virtual. So the full evolution of this is someone comes up and taps you on the shoulder, you're going to be able to feel that tap and turn around and look. Someone gives you a hug, you're going to feel the embrace. And so I'm wearing one of the first generations of a haptic, and it's called a Wooger vest. And so I was just playing a space game before I came on here, and I could feel the rumbles of the engine. I could feel getting in and out of the cockpit. And so that's where this technology is going, not just virtual reality, augmented reality. We experience these visually. Now we're going to feel them. We're going to have the sensations. They're probably going to integrate some type of temperature, so warm and cold, impact, touch, feel. This is some pretty wild stuff, and we're just getting started. And so, it's hard to see even where this technology is going to go. But I mean, this is the age of experience, and everything's going to kind of reflect into that. And it might be hard to understand at first. I think some people are like, I don't get this at all. But I think we'll understand it as things evolve and things start to diffuse into the public consciousness and things become normal. And so it is a little strange, and there's some type of public reaction when you see somebody like at a coffee shop or at college and they're wearing virtual reality. Actually, I had a friend who they told him to take it off, right? And so now you have this like where we've seen this in like in movies, television, maybe in history in the past, where we're so uncomfortable with something and we don't know what to do with it, so we want it forbidden. And so that's like now you're going to start to see VR in public. And what if somebody's wearing a haptic suit in public? And so all these things there's this transitional period that's going to happen. You're going to have the initial, you're not allowed to use VR in public. It's rude to put it on at Starbucks. But now, particularly with COVID, I think we're going to see things shift where everything's open. Oh, okay. Let's use the VR. Let's use the haptic. I think things are going to be less fearful like they were before. I think people fear what they don't understand. And so there's more of a reaction to that. So the experience age is here, and we're just getting started. And I can't imagine 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now how it's going to evolve, where you'll be in the kitchen and you'll feel a tap on your shoulder and you turn and you activate a hologram, and it's your a family member across the world, across the state, and they sing hello, and you can see them in full hologram version. You give a hug, you feel it. You feel a tap on the other shoulder. It's your husband at work, and he's like, "Hey, I had a question for you." You know what I mean? So you have all these experiential things that we're driving computation to, and the experience of these things are going to be quite compelling, and maybe scary at first, but in one sense inevitable. So I think it's just a matter of getting into them and enjoying them and not being too afraid of it. And so those are some thoughts about the future and haptic vests and whatnot.
That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know your thoughts on the future. This haptic vest, I would have loved to have seen that, but maybe you can send me a picture and I can just post it alongside the talk or something like that. So when you think about social media and things, I know you're all the way in the experience age, one of those who's like leading it. You think though, more so now though, that we're kind of moving into the transition period as we move from information to experience, you were saying? Okay. And so do you feel that the social networks go away eventually, or do they just evolve into this as well, like how Facebook is doing Horizon? Does everybody start creating these metaverses? Is that a part of it? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like the future of social media, and particularly as it relates to the experience age and virtual and augmented reality. Yeah, so I definitely think social media is going to evolve off the 2D forum format. I think that served us well for a bit, and I think we've seen how it has digressed in many ways. There's still a lot of high value to it for sure. But I think where it's going is social media is going to be more interactive. And so going back to that illustration I was giving you, the tap on the shoulder, you look and there's some friends. And so your friends are going to be in hologram form. So it's going to be less forum based and more hello, face-to-face interaction again, which I think is what we need big time. And in so many ways, just even as we have conversations about different topics. So one example I think about is there was this conversation I overheard in virtual reality. There were two people were talking about gun rights, and man, they were from completely opposite points of view. And yet it was a civil discussion. Now, if you have taken that social interaction in virtual reality and you've put it in a forum format, like let's say on Facebook, I mean, we would bet money that conversation would have digressed quickly. I mean, within a matter of 2 or 3 comments, we are attacking each other. So what VR, AR, the experience age is going to bring is that social media interaction where it's face-to-face. We hear the voice, we see the tone, we see the expressions on the face, and that's going to have the same conversation. I'm sure there'll be trolls and there'll be, negative interactions. We're, after all, human. But I think it's going to really bring social media to a positive level. I think my observation, at least, is that in society we view social media negatively. Like this is the demise of our culture. But the experience age is going to reformat social media where it's going to be, I don't want to say the savior, that's a strong word, but it's going to be a massive reformat of the social media experience to one that's actually net positive. Like we're experiencing things in a positive way instead of a draining way, in a negative way. And so that's why this experience age is so important. It's so Like, we think of it as far as technology and games, but the social implications are significant. And I'm really looking forward to how it infuses into our society, to our culture, because I think there's a lot of positive sides. So that social interaction is going to be net positive in our experiences, and I think it could just really do a lot of good for our society. So in many ways, and so going back to the form of the Facebook or the Twitter, where things can digress, you tend to see less of that in VR. It's not completely amiss. I mean, there's certainly interactions and people get angry, and hate is going to be a word. Hate's hate, regardless of what format it's in. Also, there's just a great opportunity for changing people's minds like we haven't seen before. Ain't nobody's mind getting changed on Facebook, but I've
Right.
seen minds be changed on virtual reality and virtual reality. And so I think what we're experiencing at VR Church and the things that we're seeing are so much more than just the fancy use of technology. It's these social implications, and really, I think of that technology that we all have, or each technology has an unintended consequences. So I'm sure there are going to be things about the experience age that are going to be negative that we just have to sort through. But coming out of this particular age where we're just kind of overloaded with the information age, overloaded with social media, I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air for us. And so, and then, we'll get into we'll discover the downsides of it, which ironically, I don't think is getting lost in the metaverse. People think you're going to lose yourself and your identity because at least at this point, until technology changes, VR is just more of a destination. Like, it takes, time to get plugged into it. It's not instant like your phone. So, there is a destination aspect to it. And then when you're in it, I think the average user can handle about 35 to 45 minutes. Because
Right.
you're overlaying a new reality of your eyes. That's a lot for your brain to compute. And so, to that degree, it's not going to be an addictive technology. And at least at first, maybe one day when they're contact lenses and they're the size of just a regular, pair of glasses, that can change. But right now it's not. And so people that say, oh, here's a technology that's addictive again. Now, TV, Netflix, that's the one you should worry about as far as time wasting or binging or whatever. I mean, I love those things too, but I'm just saying if we're going to talk about what technology is time consuming or addicting or, reality removal or replacing reality, it's certainly not VR. It's going to be just technology, just like computer games, your phone, Netflix, and VR is going to be amongst those things, sure, but I think not at the level that we think it's going to be. So I think people are really jarred by what's happened with technology and the downside of it. And so this automatic reaction of VR is just kind of interesting to watch. It's more negative right off the get-go. But if we don't evolve from that just assumption that all tech is bad, right, then we're going to miss out on some real positive effects that could benefit us psychologically in our brains and decreasing depression and all these like mental ailments. I'm not saying VR is a savior of that, but it is a powerful tool for those things. And so, yeah.
I always like to say, you know, the tool without a user, I mean, it's just a tool lying there. So it's really not the tool that's the issue. Sometimes it's just how the individual, or all times, it's how the individual has chosen to use it.
Right.
So I just kind of try to paint that example to a person, like for you to say VR is bad. Okay, let's put this headset down and see how bad it is. Let's see what it can do. Well, nothing, because there's no operator, you know. With that said, I just probably have maybe one or two more questions. When you think about a movie like Ready Player One, which Ready Player Two is about to come out, I really hate that I missed that talk in big screen that they had with the kind of like the team behind Ready Player Two and just their thoughts for the future. Yeah, they had that discussion. But a part of the movie is interesting to me. It's the beginning when it starts, and it's just like in real life, just really horrible looking reality. And
Yeah.
then you go into this other reality that's amazing. It's kind of like we are in a reality here in this office, but there is a personal reality that we're also a part of in this moment. What about the balance there to make sure that maybe a person doesn't just become content in these alternative realities and never really improve the personal reality around them? That's the work that I like to
Hmm.
do in the
Yeah.
immersive realm, involving our personal reality. What are your thoughts to something like that? It just made me uh, think to the movie there in that sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point, to be honest. I mean, you think of like, um, what's going on with the pandemic. You can't go outside. The election was crazy, and whatever else personal. I mean, that's external, like global things happening. And then internally, your mom's sick, you yourself are struggling, lost your job. There's a lot of these elements. So yeah, I mean, getting into VR, overlaying a new reality, escapism. Um, right. Is there a tipping point where we just live in a fantastical world and we don't seek to improve and engage the physical reality? I think it's a good point. I don't think I have an answer to that other than one of the things that's so important for us in any recovery or any trying to come at things in a healthy way is to recognize the problem. So even if we just kept talking about that, I think is huge so that we can just remember, let's not give up, right? Because it does feel easy, like I'm not going to step out there and try to engage this. Let me just go to virtual world. Let me escape from this. So there's a good point to be made by that. But on the flip side, though, it really provides people an opportunity. Like, man, let's say you're in Tokyo in an apartment, you can't go out, and let's say you do want to engage the physical world, but you're just unable to. Um, Now you just have an opportunity to engage in a social world where you can still enact some social change in virtual reality, just to engage that medium. So it provides the people an opportunity. And I heard John Carmack. John Carmack, he's a renowned developer. He used to be the CTO of Oculus. People know him from developing, I think, Doom, some of these big games, Quake back in the day, maybe. I forget which ones he did, but he talked about the equalizer that VR brings. And so I'm not going to get his wording completely accurate, but the essence of what he was saying is, there used to be the haves and have-nots, right? And so, obviously that still exists. But to the degree that in VR, I can now have a man cave. I can have a massive big screen TV. I can have couches for my friends to hang out in with. I can have a yacht. I can have a jet, right? They're virtual, but in one sense, these experiences neutralizes like a lot of elements where, I'm stuck in my room and again, like let's say I'm in a studio apartment in Tokyo. I put on my glasses. I'm in my mansion, and that's going to diffuse into many things where it equalizes stuff. Let's take something like church. We often in the physical construct see church as, oh, there's a big one on the corner. Oh, there's a small one. And then psychologically we attribute, our whatever we think of those experiences being big and small. In the VR era with churches, there's no big and small because if I started a church tomorrow by myself, I could have as big as a building as I want. I could do any experience that I want. So, let's say a church of 10,000 in their youth group come into VR, and a church of 10 come into youth group with their VR. It's the same thing. That's where the equalizer is. So, speaking of the equalization, I think that's an interesting thing, because organizationally, well, I guess to your point, you were talking about maybe something more specifically around engagement. But what I was thinking was, one of the ways that helps is psychologically you can engage at a high level coming into VR by establishing whatever, your church, your organization, your business, because you're not small. Everyone is big, if that's how you want to use terms, but everyone can just be exactly what they want to be. Because I'm sure that, there's some, churches, let's just use a church example, where they have a 200 person building and they need a 500 person one. And that's, how's that going to go? Like, years, funding, all that. And so in VR, you're a 200-person church, and you need to be a 500-person church. It's a click of the button. By next week, you're in your new facility. So now take that example and diffuse it to all different other types of scenarios, and you just see how it's an equalizing effect and an empowering effect. So I think I got off track to your point about reality and engaging reality, but I guess my thought was the empowering and equalizing effect of this can help us, at least at a neurological level, be invigorated to address change wherever we're at. So I think it's a hope giver to some degree.
That is awesome. And then just my last question is relating to your new venture for VR Church. I know you are moving into kind of, would it be, it's called a new dimension of that somewhat? Are you at liberty to talk a little bit about your new project?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of been, it was over my other shoulder, so I guess it's kind of like just sitting there. We can talk about MMO Church as a new vision from VR Church, and there's to some degree there's a lot to talk about, and to another degree there's not much to talk about because to that side we don't know exactly what we're going to evolve into. We're now in an exploring and discovery phase. We have a vision and a theory that churches need to be planted in MMOs. And for those not familiar with MMOs, it just means massively multiplayer online. So you have games that are called like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy. They have millions of players, not thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, multi-millions of players inhabiting these metaverses, these virtual worlds. And so the vision behind that is let's create these loving spiritual communities in these massively multiplayer online arenas. And let's just be a church planning there as well. So VR Church's next church is not technically virtual reality. And so I think it's kind of interesting. Like you think of churches planning churches. VR Church has planted VR churches, but now we're planning different types of digital churches. And so just kind of that moment was exciting for me to see that evolution of our church. That now we're not only just planning other virtual reality churches, we're now moving into different types of digital vision. And so that's exciting to see. And the theory is down the road, 5-10 years from now, that VR and MMO are gonna merge in a significant way. And at that point, I think VR Church will have a lot of influence, in those areas. And I think we'll just have a powerful effect to those communities. So it's a long journey. It's a long vision. I mean, 1 to 3 years just to get going, and then still looking 5 to 10 years down the road. But I think it's a vision and theory I believe in. And in the very least, we'll just be engaging in ministry and loving people. So if it's not quote unquote a success, I don't think that's the metric for us other than engagement and definitely experimentation. So we try to retain those values. And it's kind of like an apostolic movement from VR into MMO. So we'll just kind of let that energy keep going. So it'll be fun.
Well, I'm excited about it. Always so good to talk to you. We have to have our at least once a year talks like this to just kind of really take a look at things and talk about where things are going. I do want to encourage those who are watching this talk to visit vrchurch.org. Get involved. This is definitely a new type of mission work, in my point of view, that I know I support as being in an advisory standpoint from being a part of the board, but just support the work in general. Like you said, having a new vision, more where we really take into account the experience, age, and how we continue to reach people in these new dimensions of communicating and computing as well. So I'm just excited about it. I could talk about this all day, but there'll be another day.
It's exciting stuff. And I think that the future is bright, and I know things look tough, but I think we're just really looking forward to what's coming in the future. And thank you for all your help too, Al. You've been a
Yeah.
board member of VR Church and been very encouraging and supportive. And yeah, like you said, we do need people in the metaverse to, VR Church is a pathway, to get into that and to see what it's like. Definitely invite people to engage, and we do need supporters. We definitely do, because in one sense we stand alone, not completely alone, but as our evangelical history is concerned, we definitely stand alone. So, yeah, the more support from all types of support, the better. Yeah, so thank you.
Right. And so rethink this, everybody. Rethink this as a mission that you give to, you know. I'm sure there'll be more talks like this. You can always reach DJ. There's information on vrchurch.org where you can find out maybe how to reach him and just kind of have these talks and begin to support these type missions. At the end of the day, there are people on the other side of these avatars in these worlds who need to feel and experience the love of God and the life of God, which I'm just so very big on, that will make sure that their virtual reality and their real reality begin to bring hope in both those spaces, So support this mission work. That is my word for this talk. Support it. If you don't understand, do some more research about it and support it, because it is truly reaching people. Just in closing, DJ, you saw maybe in the year 2020, hundreds of people and people were saved in this way through VR Church. Is that not right?
Yeah, we have hundreds of people interact with our church every week, and yeah, we've seen many people that have come to faith in this year. So yeah, it's fascinating to see the power, the power of God in technology, where we kind of maybe disassociate those two sometimes. Like God's over here, technology is over here, but the Spirit is going to do where he's going to go where he wants to go, and he's going to do what he's going to do, and he's in these metaverses. So yeah, it's really, really powerful.
The power of God in technology. It's a real thing. DJ Soto, VR Church, MMO Church, just taking us in, pioneering these efforts. I always appreciate it, my friend, and thank you for inviting me to your office.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
finally learned, how to navigate around here a little bit. It's so beautiful in here, but thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.